Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Politics as Usual pod. I am your humble and gracious host, Joanna. On tonight's episode, we will discuss the New York State budget, bail reform, and U.S. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and the conspiracy-filled text messages between his wife and Mark Meadows. Joining us tonight is Professor Gregorio Mayers. Professor Mayers is a graduate of CUNY Medgar Evers College and earned his Juris Doctor at the City University School of Law. He is also a graduate of the Institute for Not-for-Profit Management at Columbia University. Under Mayor Michael Bloomberg, he served on the Environmental Control Board and as a senior policy advisor within the administration at City Hall. As senior policy advisor, Professor Mayers' portfolio included education, capital development, partnership projects, and the New York City Housing Authority. In 2011, while at City Hall, his portfolio was expanded to develop the mayor's list of policy and program initiatives to support the growth of minority and women-owned business enterprises in New York City. Prior to his 2 terms at City Hall and teaching, Professor Mayers served as a consultant on several political campaigns, and as an attorney, he's practicing in the areas of employment, regulatory, and immigration law. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
So you served 2 terms with Mayor Bloomberg's administration. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and what some of your responsibilities were serving on the Environmental Control Board?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And before I begin, let me congratulate you on this magnificent podcast, Politics as Usual, and hopefully we can demystify whether it's usual or not. But I thank you for bringing that to light. So sure, I'll take that question. I think in context, knowing that the city of New York, it is the most fascinating city in the United States. I think the largest city outside of the US is London, maybe 12 million people. So picture yourself a city of 8 million people where you have corporate folks, you have urban folks, you have the state of art, of all the artists you can think in, from the music industry to every type of artist, to every type of labor groups in New York, theater, education, law, manufacturing. Think about it, it's here. So to be put in a space where you able to get a view from the New Yorkers from all different aspects, because you have faith-based leaders. Brooklyn is called a borough of churches. So you get to meet leaders from that space, from the artist space who wants change, from those in the commercial industry who are looking for change, and then the average New Yorkers who really make this city work. So it's a good experience to not to be locked in and have biases, but to see how everyone from each of those segments and in your spaces see the city differently and what their expectations are. So I think that was one of the greatest experience, that any biases that I may have or lack of knowledge, to see why someone is saying we want change in this area that you may have never thought about. But when you look around, for instance, NYCHA, there are 600,000 people living in NYCHA. That is the size of the city of Boston. I repeat, it is the size of the population of the city of Boston. So when they ask and they have their needs, put that in context that the entire city of Boston that has a Major League Baseball team, basketball team, is in crying out for help.
So I know that during your work with Mayor Bloomberg's administration, you worked a lot with the MWBE Certification program. My business just received our MWBE certification, Ramsey Family Marketplace. Can you tell our listeners, thank you so much. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about this certification and touch on 3 of the top reasons for having your minority or woman-owned business certified as a MWBE?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So, you know, again, New York City, center of commerce, center of business opportunity. So the MWBE program, of course, Minority Women Business Enterprise, is we have currently a commissioner of small business services. And that commissioner in the city really works towards small businesses, which is really the mom and pop, which is really the engine of the city. What we found is that when I got to City Hall, it was that out of a budget at that time of $80 billion, I repeat, $80 billion with a B, annual budget, operating budget, 14 billion of those dollars of that 80 went to procurement. What does that mean, Joanna? It means that the city buys police cars, they buy trucks for delivery. Every agency have needs. They buy desks, they eat food, they have parties, they have to clean the buildings, the facilities. So $14 billion were spent of that. And Blacks, Latino, Asian, and some women of color, were getting 0.5% of 14 billion. One need not to be a mathematician of $14 billion being spent in buying table, in buying desk. Remember, we have 1,800 physical schools. You got to buy and purchase books. You got to purchase everything for this city that's called that the government will need, pens, paper, and 0.5 of 14 billion. So therefore, looking at what I did was I was pleased that Mayor Bloomberg and his team allowed me to be the spearhead of looking at reforms. We looked at cities like DC with Mayor Barry, who had an excellent plan. We looked at Atlanta, where Mayor Jackson at that time, even at the airport, that even the shoe shine person at the airport was an MWBE, the florist, everyone made money. So what we really wanted to look at as a nutshell is that how then do we address, without looking at it as affirmative action, create, and you said it well, programs to address that and to really bring small businesses together to know that this city represents you. And one, we did a suite of programs called Compete to Win, letting them know how to bid, because you have to bid. You just don't get a city contract. We taught them how to get their credit repaired. And for those in construction, bond. You can't go out there and build and do a project if you don't have bonding. You need insurance to cover your work. So again, many of the MWBEs in construction had issues with credit. They could not get bonding because you can't get a city contract if you don't have an insurance underwriting you if something happened on that project. So we had to really educate. And as someone who's an educator, we created these programs to really bring light to the MWBs. And one of the things that we did at the time, I made it a streamline that when you applied for the city, and I hope that happens to yours, automatically you apply for the state as well. So the MWBE program in the city application puts you now on a map to receive opportunities and contracts and RFPs to respond on it. But at one time, you had to still go back and fill out a whole set of forms for the state. During that time, we streamlined it that if your marketplace business want to look at Albany, Westchester, Buffalo to do business, you certainly can, because it should allow you to do that. So, and lastly, in closing, we just really wanted to change that. Part of the legislation that was programmed, the legislation gave goals and looked at agencies that each agency must report and said, how much are you spending in the police department? The fire department, how much are you spending? Because guess what? There are bathrooms in the police department that needs fixing, it needs repair. There are tools and things that are purchased. So every ACO and MWBE person, each agency will give a report. And when those reports are lacking, that you're spending 20 million or 5 million or 7, and the numbers show that MWBEs are not, the question is why. So what it did now, we gave percentage, 10%, 8%, 7% in some of the areas. 10% went towards construction, that every Black, Latino, Asian, and any city project should able to compete successfully. They'll have to compete and will able to get part of that contract. One school alone could cost us $100 million. I repeat, one high school could come anywhere between 80 to 100 million. Imagine an MWBE getting 5% of that. Imagine the 10 people that are working on that MWBE of city taxpayers' dollars. So Blacks, Latinos, Asian, and women are entitled to that money. So those are some of the things we created, and some of the reforms we made it where 20%, it's not happening, of all contracts should go to MWBEs. The state raised it to 30%. But I'm saddened to say that of today, we have not hitting that mark of the 30% of Black, brown, women, any minorities, Asian, Latinos getting that 30% of contracts going towards them.
Do you know the percentage that we're sitting at right now of the success of this program? How many?
I think, if I'm correct, the last administration with de Blasio, and it depends because you have construction category, right? You have standard services as well, and then you have professional services. So I don't want to misinform a little bit, but I believe they were somewhere at 15% to 20%. And part of that is sometimes that the term will be whether or not the minority firm have the capacity.
Yes.
So which sometimes is true, sometimes it's not. But if the minority firm does not have the capacity, meaning they don't have 8 trucks to do the job, they don't have 90 employees, there's something called subcontracting, where from that prime contractor will get credits from the city if they hire subcontractors. No, you wouldn't get that 10% or 15%, but you would still get a part of the percentage from the prime contractor. And that's all we want to start with to make sure that you do. But they do have the qualification. They're engineering firms, they're Black architectural firms, Latino, they're women-owned, and we have to change away from that myth to show if you never give someone an opportunity, they will always you will never know if they can compete. So one of the things that I want to mention is the School Construction Authority have a great program, same as the MTA. In the School Construction Authority program, Joanna, if you are a contractor and you can build schools, you're a carpenter, you're a plumber, or you're an electrician, the school construction that does all the construction for all our school will start you out it's a 3-year program. And you will get from the first year a $25,000 contract. And maybe if you do well on that contract, that goes up to 50, then 100, then 200,000, then 300. When you finish that program, we call it the graduate program, where you get enough close up to do work as $1 million. And that's the way you got to ease folks in and let the company grow. And I like that model because that program with the School Construction Authority is an excellent model. So
in the New York City agencies currently, I know we have the Small Business Administration. Are there services that can aid helping business in that capacity?
Absolutely. They have the loan modification program to really help you to get a loan to jumpstart your business. One of the things is they help you with the business incubator centers that they have in each borough, that you go there as a small business person to really help you to do that. Is if you're looking to expand and need a loan, commercial loan from the banks, they'll help you and guide you along that way. You see, it's good because once the banks can see that you are growing, that Joanna will have 8 contracts, 10 contracts was approved from her, even if they're small contracts to say your marketplace, $2,500 each. They know that you're growing, that you will grow. So it's easier for a commercial bank or a small bank to say, I'm going to give you a revolving loan for you to get moving and started. We see your contracts already. We know the money is good. We know the money is coming in, right? So that is always a good way. So yes, they do have programs of that to really help you and grow your business. They have workshops, they have seminars to help you grow. And again, not for necessarily for all businesses, but those business. One of the things that we did was in the compete to win is really having those, as you said, those suites of programs. And if you are if you're a small company member, so there are 3 categories with the MWBE. You have professional services, where accountants, psychotherapists, lawyers, engineers, architect will need to look over some of the city plans. If you have even maybe in a criminal justice side, or on a school, the DOE, 86,000 teachers, 1.1 million students, a child may need counseling it may be referred to that psychotherapy agency. And many more today, more and more families will want to see a psychotherapist of color. If that psychotherapist is on that list with the city, and this is no need startup any money, much needed, but they may want to get a small loan because they may want to hire 5 other therapists. Now that the contract is expanded, that they are seeing maybe since the pandemic, 200 students in a month time period. There will be a loan able to help you. Because remember, one of the challenges doing business with the city, you're not going to get paid in the 30-day time period. You're not going to be paid, very rare. Unfortunately, with city contracts, sometimes the payment arrives in 30. Sometimes it may be 60 days and sometimes as far as 90 days. So small businesses will go under unless you have a loan, a relationship with a bank that will cover your payroll, because they will do that. They'll pay the interest, but they know that the city money may be late, but is sure.
After the break, we are going to dive right into the New York State budget. Stay tuned as we break down some of the hot ticket items that were passed this week. Hey, constituents. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. This episode is sponsored by Ramsey Family Marketplace, a Black-owned grocery store selling healthy and organic products from chefs, artisans, and small businesses owned by people of color. Hit the link in the description box to grab your snacks. Now back to the show.